Hello guys, how are you doing? My name is Serkan Toto. I actually popped over to Seoul just for this conference from Tokyo, where I've been living since around 2004. So I'm actually not Japanese. So Ura-san, who's sitting next to me here, is, but I'm a German national. I've been living in Japan for about 9 years, and today I was invited by the organizers of this conference to moderate this panel, Trends in Cloud Computing. And I think it's a very interesting topic because there are so many cloud computing related news items have been popping up in the last 3 to 4, maybe even more for years, maybe even for a longer time. So, Apple has just said that there are 300 million iCloud users. The PlayStation 4 from Sony was just introduced with expanded cloud computing features. IBM just bought a company in the US called Software for $2 billion US. And every day you check the technology blogs, and there's almost on a daily basis, there is a news item related to cloud computing. So I think that there's a reason why this topic is on the agenda today. And today we have 3 esteemed speakers who will hopefully shed a little bit of light on this topic and where cloud computing is today, where it will go in the future, what the challenges are for the industry, and of course, since we're here in an entrepreneur-driven kind of conference, what cloud computing means for startups, but as well as to some extent for larger corporations. So, Ura-san, why don't you start with a brief self-introduction?
Thank you very much. Second. 여러분, 정배스기입니다. 저는 일본 셀스포스.com 대표 Eiji. Thank you. Still continue. So, 바쁘신 와중에 저의 강연에 참석해 주셔서 감사합니다. So, let me introduce my company. So, we established the company in 1999 in San Francisco. Then, so we will achieve $4 billion in revenue in this fiscal year. So, average compound growth ratio in the past 5 years is around more than 30% growth, very growing rapidly. And so, Japan is the second largest market in Salesforce.com globally. Then, so one reason why I came here in Korea is to learn and know the market opportunity in Korea for a company. Then, so I believe it's a very good time for us to invest more in Korea. Then, so ecosystem and partnership is very important for our company. Then, so I would like to share with your team. Then, so I'm very happy to share the information how we could be successful in Japan, and then so we want to collaborate with your company, with your company and your team. Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent. Insik, maybe you next.
So thank you for having me here, and really appreciate the opportunity. I was an entrepreneur twice, and now I'm an investor. I'm a general partner at Rembrandt Ventures, and we invest in early stage startups, primarily for the US market. And my second company was a company called LoudCloud, where we sort of helped pioneer the concept of cloud computing as a business model, and that was in 1999. So I learned a lot of first-hand experience around what it means to try to become a leading service provider, and it was a very tough lesson because my background was a software developer, was a product engineer, and so there has been this very large, titanic shift in the industry in terms of how we deliver technology in the last 2 decades, and so primarily it used to be products and services to go along with products. And cloud computing is a manifestation of this ever-growing trend around providing computing and technology as a service. And so it's been really thrilling to see and witness the evolution of the market throughout the last decade plus.
Hi, I'm an actually last-minute substitution. The CTO of Cloudera and co-founder was supposed to be here, but due to unfortunate emergency, he couldn't make it. My name is Hanjoo Lee. I'm here representing Hostway. I'm CEO of Hostway. Hostway is a cloud hosting provider based out of Chicago. And we have 12 data centers around the world. It's a company that was started in 1998. So, we were able to observe the evolution and sometimes revolutionary changes in the internet industry and how services are delivered over the internet. Now the cloud hosting or cloud computing is the word, but right before that it was SaaS. And right before that, it was application hosting. And I think we should have a pretty interesting discussion today about what does it mean to have a cloud computing or cloud hosting, and what it means for different segments of the market, and what are some of the trends. So glad to be here.
Excellent, awesome. So you two guys have started cloud-based companies in the 1990s. And your startup was even named Loud Cloud in 1999?
Yep.
Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. And that was basically in the Stone Age before the dot-com bubble burst, et cetera, right? Wow. Yeah. Okay, I'm impressed. So I think that one of the reasons why I was chosen as the moderator of today's panel was that I'm not an expert in cloud computing. So, and I think that I share this with a lot of the people in this audience. So a lot of the people here, but also out there in the tech industry, when they hear the word cloud computing, right? It's kind of black box for a lot of people. It means so many things to so many people, right? It means there's so many associations that you have just with this term alone. Can you maybe explain what you see, what you would define as cloud computing? What is the industry actually about? What's the structure of the industry? Where are we in the life cycle of this industry? And what's the size of the industry? Who are the biggest players, et cetera, et cetera? Maybe Insik, could you share your ideas?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a history debrief, but the term cloud computing, back in sort of the late 90s, there was a sort of a push around utility computing and autonomic computing. So the industry sort of started fairly nascently, like any other big movement. And it was a really hard thing to realize until two fundamental forces actually made the opportunity realizable. One being open source, and the second being virtualization. So the foundations of cloud computing really came to full being once those two trends emerged in the global marketplace. And the service providers today offering cloud services are able to do it utilizing commodity hardware that they can virtualize, and then they can apply a lot of their own secret sauce, but a healthy dose of open source software on top of that to provide a fairly cost-effective and scalable platform. And that's known in the industry now as IaaS, or infrastructure as a service. And there's the traditional SaaS model, sort of that Salesforce helped pioneer, is still there, alive and healthy, but now we're talking about people starting SaaS 2.0 companies, which are companies that are building with the cloud as the foundational start base. When Salesforce started, they didn't have a cloud to start from, so they had to continue to evolve their technology stack and reinvent themselves throughout the years. But now the SaaS market is thriving again, partially thanks to the fundamentals of cloud computing being available as an infrastructure service. And then there's a squishy middle, and I call it squishy because we're not quite sure where this market's headed around the platform as a service industry, which is the PaaS part. And these are frameworks and different types of application API-driven interfaces that are being offered to developers by large vendors to entice them to build more rapidly, more productively their solutions on their cloud infrastructure. So Those are the three major sort of constitutes of cloud computing, and the industry is continuing to mature, and the consolidation phase is, as you noted in the IBM software acquisition, starting to sort of come to full being at this point.
Right, exactly. And maybe Hanjoo, can you explain how your company is fitting into that kind of ecosystem? What do you think you are doing differently than your competitors? I mean, there was so much competition in that space, right? I mean, a lot of these companies just died off, and basically they were just slaughtered in the last couple of years. So how does Hostway fit into that kind of ecosystem and industry?
So, like Insik said, there are three categories, right? There's IIS, there's PaaS, and then there's SaaS, where Salesforce.com is at that kind of top-end SaaS. Nobody can figure out yet what PaaS is. Hostway is very much in the IIS, and I'm sure a lot of you know about Amazon Web Services, AWS. I mean, they are the biggest player. In fact, they are the pioneers in that space. Now, Cloud was definitely there. I mean, that was Mark Andreessen of the Netscape fame who started it. So he had the vision, but I think it was fully realized by AWS. Now, there are a lot of competitions in the cloud space. For example, Rackspace is one. SoftLayer, which was just bought by IBM. Hostway is another one. Amazon Azure is another effort. And just about every IT company, IBM, HP, they all have some kind of IS service that they're doing. How are all these players differentiating from each other? I think we're still trying to figure that out. But Hostway in particular, what we're really good at is helping companies who don't have a very sophisticated IT adopt cloud technology. In fact, we have our own public cloud, just like the AWS, but we also have an extensive service. In fact, more of our revenue comes from having customers, helping customers build private cloud and maintaining that, as well as what's called a bare metal cloud. Hostway is very good helping these companies who are not that sophisticated in terms of IT adopt cloud technology. AWS, for example, is really good for companies with a lot of developers, very sophisticated technologies, and very sophisticated technology staff. So, and then there's a whole, gradation of, differences. So, who's ultimately going to win? I think that's the question. I mean, just like any other technology trend in the last 50 years, I don't think there's a one solution that's going to win out. Insik and I were having discussion earlier. He has a different idea, so I think it's a good segue to that.
The challenge here is really one where the premise of cloud computing is a enabler of a commoditization effort, right? So it's really about utility computing services being offered like a utility, and in those types of markets, you see commoditization. And pricing and margin pressure continue to sort of dwindle. So in our industry lingo, we call it a race to the bottom, right? And I do think differentiation around services capabilities or specific types of technology are relevant and interesting. And it's really a function of you're defined by who you sell to and how you sell to them, more than what is a technology competency in this economy. And so a lot of it really is going to be around, Hanjoo has a very distinct go-to-market approach around how he identifies the segment of customers that are important and valuable to his business. And AWS and Amazon is more of an open market platform, and they're saying, well, if you're a developer, you should be using us to start your next company. And we're going to make it very cheap, very efficient. But even they have challenges because as the infrastructure scales, they're actually not very cheap when you start running hundreds of nodes of their compute in the cloud.
Okay, just to stay with a more basic approach, just for one more moment, how do you see cloud computing adopted in the US versus Asian markets? I mean, we just heard from Ura-san that for Salesforce, Japan is the second largest market worldwide. But would you say that Koreans, for example, are more skeptical about or slower about cloud computing adoption? What about China and all of these markets? Do you see a big geographical disparity between Asia and the rest of the world? Maybe Ura-san.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. First, in Japan, we could be successful because Japanese government adopted Salesforce.com for the special project. Then, so they need to hurry up the economic stimulation. Then, and so we won the deal. Then, and so we realized the project successfully. Then at that time, after that, many company respect us. This is one of the big trigger. Then usually the Japanese government and the Japanese market is also very conservative for the new IT company, also new technologies. But as all guys said that the cloud computing is a service business model in IT industry. Then there are many similar things in other industries. For example, restaurant. So you don't need to buy the material. Meat, vegetable, fish, and you don't need to buy, and you don't need to cook. Just you choose the dishes, and then you can eat, and then you don't need to wash the dishes. This is a service business model. Then cloud computing is like something like such a kind of thing in IT industry. So far, all companies have to buy the hardware, software, middleware, and develop and maintenance, and there are many things. Then, but it is very easy things, very simple thing to buy or use. Then, I explained many things many times to the government and the large companies. Then, after all, the Japanese market accepted our business model.
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned the Japanese government in your case, because the Japanese government, I mean, as you said, and again, I lived in Japan for almost a decade now. It's amazingly conservative, and I would, I'm not really sure about Korea, but I would also assume that the Korean government is also not really, a forward-thinking kind of government in that space. So because, I mean, and the reason why I bring this up is that cloud computing is one of the biggest buzzwords that you associate with cloud computing is security, right? And that's what you hear from a lot of people. Oh, is it secure when I store my cloud data on the cloud as a company, as an enterprise, or even as an individual user? And so it's one of the biggest question marks that also always hovers over this whole industry. What is your response as professionals in this
I'll jump into that, right? I mean, I think that the whole security thing is it's a nonsense. Somehow cloud is not secure. I challenge every single IT department that's in any company and say, how much are you actually spending on security? And compare that to how much Salesforce.com is spending on their security. In fact, talking about conservative government of Japan Postal is a big customer of yours, right? Think about that. That's one of the biggest institutions in Japan, a governmental institution. They're using Salesforce.com. So, with that, I'll just, that's my opinion. It's pretty strong, but.
So first of all, our company spends more than $100 million for just only security, privacy. It's just mandatory because of any other company can spend money for such a kind of such a size, for just only for security. Because the reason why we can spend money, because if we lose the security or privacy, then we will be bankrupt. Therefore, trust is the first priority for a company. Then this is the mandatory skill. Then probably the world-class top engineer watching every time, 24/7 days. Then to protect every kind of attack. Then this is so the essential point. Then so the when I sort of when I talk about when I sell to the Japan Post, then after all, so that they investigate our security class, and then after that, one more important thing is that risk and take balance. Then, so that even so that I want to say that so that there are many theoretical sort of risk assessment. Theoretical, for example, and when you go to the restaurant, then so someone made sort of poisoning. Or so when we save the money in the bank, then some sort of banker will steal my money. It's theoretically so feasible, but it's not logical. Then this is a service model. Then after that, they will evaluate the risk and take. Then take is much higher. After all, so they adapted us. This is the background. So.
Yeah, I would tend to agree and echo the similar sentiment. There's a lot of skepticism among the largest enterprises in the world who can't afford the amount of IT infrastructure and staff. For them, going to the cloud, at a public cloud, or using AWS or other providers is something they're still fairly skeptical of, and they would prefer to adopt technology such as OpenStack or other software solutions, enabled solutions, and SDN and other technologies to then build their own private cloud. But even so, if you look at the department levels of some of the biggest enterprises, there are many projects that actually start from an outside cloud, and then they determine based on their own sort of their own sense of secureness, I guess, whether they want to then take it and bring it in-house or leave it on the cloud. So there is a fair amount of effort in the VC community around investing in hybrid cloud enablers, so that the enterprises then can make a decision, whether it's early or late binding, to start projects in public and bring it to private, or they actually start projects internally and they use the public cloud in order to have a capacity on demand in case they need the extra capacity very quickly.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I make money no matter what. Whether they're on the public cloud or private cloud or bare metal cloud, I'm making money on all three models, right? But once again, really just to emphasize, last year I was at a cloud expo in New York. The CIO, the Chief Information Officer of CIA, okay, Central Intelligence Agency of the USA, was speaking, and he said, by adopting public cloud, we're more secure now than ever. It's nonsense. The security issue on public cloud is nonsense.
But I mean, so it sounds more than this security issue in quotation marks is more of a emotional matter than it is actually an intellectual or logical, as Uda-san said, matter. Yeah, Uda-san, I wanted to ask you one more thing about your business in Japan. So you mentioned Japan Post as one of your that was basically the big win that helped Salesforce win in Japan, because after that you had a lot of trust in the business community in Japan. Who's your biggest customer now? Can you disclose that?
Yeah, of course. So the biggest customers, now the Japan Post was privatized, then but still belong to the public sector.
Right.
Then the Japan Post was is the largest customer in the world. Then and also there are many projects in the government area. So for example, small and medium enterprise agency. So we've just won the deal from this agency. They are focusing on the small and medium enterprise. How to make a great ecosystem for the small and medium enterprise entrepreneur. Then they started from 10,000 companies, but the goal is right now 1 million companies. How to integrate these companies to be a very big power. Then how to realize the powerful the small and medium enterprise.
Right. And how much is your biggest customer spending each year for your company?
So in the worldwide, then more than $50 million per year.
More than $50 million
Yes,
per year.
For Salesforce.com. But here is the global SIR. So for example, Accenture, or the KPMG, or any other consultancy, is now the key player for the cloud computing business. He won the deal. So for example, Accenture's case, he won the deal around $500 million for 5 years.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Okay. I mean, changing gears a little bit from more of the industry side and the supply side to the demand side of cloud computing. I just want to talk about entrepreneurs and startups adopting cloud computing or starting businesses in that sector. Maybe Insik, when I read TechCrunch, maybe not on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis, surely, I mean, there's almost always a news item, about a cloud computing startup that's getting funded, especially in the United States. I mean, there are a lot of startups in this sector getting funded left and right. Do you think that is a correct way to see it, or is it just my imagination that there's a lot of movement in this area? And
well, you only see the ones that get funded. I see the ones that don't get funded as well. So
I would say there's a lot more going on than we see, right?
I think from an entrepreneur side of the fence, being in the business of cloud computing is actually quite challenging in today's environment, because in order to be a provider, you have to have scale, and in order to have sort of this capability, it's scale that wins over all other aspects of the business. Because when you become a provider in the cloud business, you are almost like an insurance company. People go with you because you're a safe bet, and they're betting a part of their business or entire business in some cases on your infrastructure or your capabilities. However, from a consumption perspective, I have no doubt that almost every software startup, at least that I've seen recently, is using cloud computing as the fundamental basis of how they're building their products and services. And then they're creating their applications or other enabling aspects of the business to offer it, whether it's delivering video online or whether it's making communication programs or productivity suites or whatnot.
Hanjoo, is there any reason for a startup not to adopt cloud computing at all?
No, in fact, I mean, I think every startup that's doing something on the internet should start on the cloud. I mean, there's no reason not to. I think there is unless you have something very specialized where the current cloud technology doesn't allow you to, achieve that performance, you could do it. But you got to think long and hard about that. I mean, you make sure that you're really being honest with yourself, whether or not you can't do that on the cloud. There are a lot of tools available out there, and it's just a matter of making certain choices, and then making sure that your software is architected in such a way that it should work on the public cloud. Now, having said that, once a startup reaches a certain level, or a company or any enterprise reaches a certain level of size, there does come a time, at least for some of the companies, where it does make sense to get off the public cloud and get into the private cloud or some other setup. Like Zynga is a prime example. Zynga, the Facebook game maker, so they started with AWS. And then, I mean, they're still using AWS, but the significant portion of their, infrastructure is their own. They actually built it, So, in IT, don't ever, I mean, my experience is that, there's never one solution that fits all. And then you do have to be careful with cost. Amazon really is not cheap. I think it gives you a lot of advantages if you're a startup where you don't have to spend a lot of CapEx to get started on the public cloud. And same thing with the Hostway public cloud. So we do a lot of businesses with the startups. But once they reach certain scale where it's like $100,000 per month in billing, I think you should take a look at different options like private cloud or bare metal cloud.
Yeah, I think one analogy I like to use is if you're a consumer, you have a family of 4, you're going to go buy sodas by the can. And then maybe as you have parties, you're going to go buy 2-liter bottles. But then if you're operating a restaurant, you're going to buy a soda fountain and just buy the cartridges and syrup. So in cloud computing, you have similar types of analogies now where AWS might be the best place to start because it's very cheap. You swipe your credit card and off you go. You don't need to talk to anybody. Nobody needs to really help you. But at a certain scale, you may realize, wow, I should really kind of bring some of these core competencies either in-house or to a different provider because they're going to give me more robust, maybe networking infrastructure or more better, different type of class of storage that Amazon doesn't really support. And so there's opportunities as companies who grow up on the cloud mature, where they make these step function adjustments, and maybe it is switching from cloud to a different cloud, or they're also then thinking about bringing parts of the stack in-house. But there's no doubt in my mind, at least, that if you're starting a company and building software as a primary skill set, you should be starting from the cloud because the cost advantage is just, I mean, you can't even hire the type of people anymore to actually do half the stuff that an AWS or Rackspace or Hostway provides you.
Right. So it sounds like adopting, cloud computing as a startup is a no-brainer kind of deal. But I mean, you just mentioned, Insik, that you are a little bit skeptical about cloud computing related startups, that start in this business.
I have too many scars on my back.
All right. And as the last segment of this panel, I would like to talk about innovation that's happening in this industry. So are you? What kind of? I mean, let me ask you a very open question. What kind of innovation do you see in this rather large field of cloud computing at the moment?
The emerging trend now. So cloud computing is still a very big hot topic. What's happening now that's really kind of pervasive in the industry is the concept of this big data revolution, and the confluence of cloud and big data is actually a very interesting opportunity right now in the market. So we're seeing a lot of innovation in cloud-based analytics capabilities and giving businesses fundamentally a different way to manage their data about their customers, about their partners, about their own internal capabilities, and utilizing the cloud in conjunction with big data solutions. We see a humongous amount of opportunity and traction in that space.
And are you actively looking at startups coming to you with pitches to your company?
Every week.
Every week. Oh, that's great. Also from non-American sources, or are these all American startups or America-based startups?
Well, because I'm based in Silicon Valley, most of them are American. But a number of companies have really sort of started in other places, but also have migrated towards Silicon Valley as a nexus especially for sales and marketing. And one of the things that I witness here coming to Spark Labs and in meeting with some of the companies is innovation could crop anywhere. And we've seen successes of models. A lot of the very famous Israeli companies who've done this very well, where the entrepreneurs take the global view and try to then enter into the market. So, with the cloud, you can be in business anywhere, right? So what I see an opportunity is, while we don't currently have investments of this nature, I mean, there will be a time when Korean entrepreneurs should be able to market themselves into the U.S. market, with a product and service from the get-go, and receive venture financing and grow.
Right. Do you see maybe any Korean startups that are active in this cloud? I mean, I know you both are based in the U.S. and Ura-san is of course based in Japan. But have you heard anything about a Korean startup that's active in that space, and where you see, wow, those guys are?
Yeah, I mean, the Spark Labs, one of the companies in our first class is NF Labs. It's right in that space that Insik just talked about, which is big data analytics and the visualization of the just lots of data. But, and I just, Salesforce.com Japan actually bought, what was it, like 12 companies in Japan, right?
Not bought, but we invested. So the equity participation into the 12 companies, small, medium enterprise. Then one of them is the Toyota Media Service. This is the very big parent company. They have a very big parent company. but so that we invest so Toyota so jointly, for example.
So
Then,
you invested in 12 companies last year?
No, so the so far,
yeah.
I mean, in the past 5 years or so.
Okay, over the last time. And how does, Salesforce Japan is this, big company by itself. How do you try to innovate inside of your company?
So Salesforce.com itself was the startup company in 2000. Then also the Mark Benioff, so the founder and CEO, chairman, is entrepreneur. Then so Salesforce.com itself, its market cap is around $25 billion. So 25 trillion won. Then so grown very fast. Then in his history, so the innovation is the most important thing. Then so that he didn't want make the solution, but innovation. This is very important. Then so it will be very important for you, because my idea. So I worked for IBM for more than 20 years. Then so I worked for this company around 10 years. Then so I didn't like the word of solution. Solution is sometimes we will investigate the customer's pain or issue and concern. Then I can provide you the solution. But after all, this company customer could be successful or not. Very pessimistic. Then, but innovation is absolutely different. Means not depend on the customer's requirement, also the issues and concerns, pain, but aim at the new ideas. Then after all, they develop, start from very limited viable product. Then after that, in accordance with the company's growth, many functions are add-on. This is the innovation model. Then I truly think that we could be successful because we could provide innovation to our customer. This is our key success factor. Then I would like to recommend you that all people have to consider innovation, how to realize the dream of our customer. It's a very important point.
Actually, just if I could add to the innovation happening in Korea, in fact, the other big trend in cloud computing is what's called a SDN, software-defined network. So as some of you may know, the compute nodes are, it's in the cloud, the storage definitely on the cloud, and it's all virtualized. The next kind of frontier, next active area that also needs to be virtualized is a network. And that's the software-defined network. And probably, that concept has been around, just like even the cloud compute and the storage, but, it really started to take off in 2005. And there's some interesting, works being done in Korea, but that's all in the academic labs within universities. So, we need to go source those and convince them to start a business. And just even on the big data stuff, there's another company called Grutter. They're pretty good as well. And then like I said, like NF Lab. So there are a lot of companies actually doing some interesting work in Korea as well.
Yeah, and in the Valley, the new thing is SDS now, the software-defined storage. So there is a lot of attention being paid to applying SDN to storage.
Software-defined anything. Software-defined X is the next big buzzword.
Right. So we heard from Uda-san, a lot about innovation in cloud computing in general. Then you mentioned big data and software-defined X. Is there anything else that you see in the market? Is that all?
Building on the big data theme and cloud, I mean, it's really the shift is moving away from functionality as being the main core value delivering to your customers, to analytics and insights. So what's really happening now is verticalization of applying insights from data. So companies that are being started now are really interested in hiring data scientists and quants just as much as they crave engineers. And there's actually a very high demand for these skills in the industry at all stages, not just startups, but at the biggest companies in the world. Because in order to manage data at large volume and get these insights, it's really kind of a needle in the haystack problem, right? You're trying to really distill humongous amounts of data to find predictive or machine learned or analyze data. But once you create these insights, then you can build a very fundamentally strong business, whether it's in e-commerce or whether it's in advertising or whether it's in pharmaceutical. So when you apply the solution, when you apply the technology around big data and cloud and start kind of building the business value always derives from the analysis of the data. So we're seeing that's an interesting opportunity because the next generation of computer scientists are going to continue to build a lot of interesting capabilities, but the next crop of data scientists are going to have some huge wins as well.
And how long do you think that will take?
It's happening now. We're seeing companies in the U.S. There's a company called Palantir that's growing very nicely, servicing solutions for governments and other large organizations. And we have other company. We have an investment in a predictive analytics company that helps do application performance management, or in other aspects of e-commerce and advertising. The current trend of utilizing retargeting technologies or recommendation engines. Many of those are utilizing big data and cloud.
Right. Okay. I mean, the reason why I ask is, I would like to know. Again, as a non-expert in this field, if there's another chance for another Salesforce, right, in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, do you see any company that's that's scaling so quickly in this area anywhere in the world that you will think, okay, these guys will maybe end up being as big as Salesforce is right now?
I'll let Insik go. He's got one company in his portfolio that.
No, I'm not gonna pitch my portfolio company, but I do hear great things about.
You can, please. I mean, if it makes sense, go ahead.
I do hear great things about Workday. Yeah, and they're growing phenomenally.
Okay, that's a U.S.-based company.
Oh yes.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, one more thing that I would like to talk about is the recent and this was not in the script. This I just out of my own interest, and I think that a lot of people or some people in the audience would also be interested in hearing about, is the role of cloud computing in the recent NSA scandal. So I heard a lot of bad things about not bad things, but a lot of negativity about the role of cloud computing. You mentioned the CIA before, and in the NSA scandal, that people had to rethink how they use the internet, and now this is the end consumers. It's not startups anymore. It's not large corporations or cloud computing startups. Just about the end consumer. What do you think? Should even cloud computing be part of that discussion, or is it complete nonsense again? Or what would you say to that pretty recent development?
Yeah, don't get me wrong about the security concern being a nonsense on the cloud. I mean, what I mean by that is like the breach, like some kind of malicious attack. I mean, you're much better off putting your stuff in the cloud than putting it in your own data center because the cloud providers are spending so much more money. Now, the NSA scandal is something different. That has nothing to do with cloud, right? That has absolutely nothing to do with cloud. Government was listening on the phone conversation long before the cloud ever, came into place. So it's just simply that instead of just listening on the voice calls, now they're listening on all the data transfers, deep packet inspections, and all that good stuff. Yeah, I mean, as a hosting company operating since '98, trust me, there are a lot of government agencies that come in and then listening on some of the transactions that are happening. And AT&T, all Verizon, and all those communication companies. I mean, why do you think the government gets freaked out when foreign companies try to buy the telcos? Why do you think? Do you think that Korean government is going to ever allow somebody to buy KT? It's just, I don't know why it's a surprise to people.
I think they're in different domains. This NSA policy, I think Ray Ozzie earlier had a fairly thoughtful comment on this, which I tend to agree with, which is it's really about it's one of transparency. That's the real issue at heart, and I do think that cloud computing, there's security issues, data loss prevention issues, data governance issues, but in general, the security frameworks and concerns and these issues that creep up on privacy and security are policy and sort of governance issues. They're not technology problems in general. Most of the field of technology, or the security of technology, as a technologist, we worried about encryption and bits and bytes and whatnot, but the policymakers are the ones that truly govern security, and this issue with NSA is really not a technology issue whatsoever.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying this. And so maybe the absolutely last point of this discussion. Do you guys have any kind of advice, a piece of advice for the many entrepreneurs that are sitting here, or for the many future entrepreneurs maybe also sitting here in the audience? If there's one thing that that you want to share with the with the rest of the audience, what would it be? Maybe Uda-san first.
So for entrepreneurs, please focus on your success. And then at that time, so customer is the most important thing for your business and the future. Then at that time, you have to give them trust, your trust to them. This is very important. Then at that time, cloud computing itself, it doesn't matter for you. Then this is just a tool. I'm not saying that every system will be transferred to the cloud computing, but probably many systems will be continuously made by L'Oreal on. But on the other hand, there are many functionality and many changes in the social infrastructures. Mobile environment is also growing rapidly. Then at that time, there are many different. Then there are two things. So to keep the tradition, but also to try the new idea, new approach. This combination is the most important for your success. It's my recommendation to you.
Okay, thank you. Insik, maybe one last word?
I would say ignore the big companies when it comes to trying to attack a market with an innovation. While they can compete with you on many, many dimensions, they typically cannot innovate nearly as fast as you can. And one of the one of the biggest capabilities that the cloud computing is providing us today is the fact that you can iterate 100 times faster on your particular solution or product or service than you were able to do it 10 years ago. So it's that agility that's going to continue to make you relevant and unique, differentiated, and at some point desirable for the big guys. And they are willing to nurture the ecosystem at the startup stage, right? All the big companies are investing seed funds, providing a platform for almost free, and donating their time, effort, and money into this thriving ecosystem for startups. And they want you to succeed to some reasonable scale, but they do want you to succeed. So I would say, don't fear that as being a competitive block. Worry about the 50 other startups that are in your neighborhood.
Excellent. And Hanjoo, you have been in the game for 15 years. What would you recommend your successors?
Once again, I would echo all the things that were said here. Agility, speed, being able to pivot, and that's, you're gonna hear that a lot from people, from your mentors and advisors. But in order for you to really do that well, your infrastructure has to be able to support it, and that's what cloud allows you to do, right? Not being married to a dedicated infrastructure. I mean, I know as engineers and system guys, you love to own your own servers and just hug them and then love them, but really, then you're married to it, right? Then you're not going to be able to change. The speed is the most important thing in a startup, right? So you got to, like Insik said, you got to worry about the other startups, not so much the big companies. And you already have the speed advantage over the big companies, but you may not against other startups. So you got to just keep everything very light. And then infrastructure